brotherhood, multiplication, restoration. We are Sin Network. We're a family, planting churches together. Join us as we hear from leaders of this movement from across North America and discover what it really takes to plant churches everywhere for everyone.
Today we're talking with Chip Dodd, founder of Sage Hill Counseling Center, about how emotional health fuels personal ministry.
Chip, it's great to be with you.
Thank you. Good to be here, Dhati.
Most people know you as Chip Dodd, the author of Voice of the Heart. Yeah. I've grown to know you as a mentor, a friend, someone I look up to, inspire. You have helped, God has used you to change my life. And I really just appreciate, what you brought and what you bring.
And the same.
Yeah.
And the same.
So, man, you have been doing heart work for many, many years. Yeah. How did you what was your journey?
The journey, there's always a longer story, but short story is raised in the world of addiction, and then the latter years finished our upbringing in the age of recovery, and all of that affected my life like crazy, as you can imagine. I got into recovery myself in the late 80s, recovery of my own heart, and then got a PhD in counseling. After all the years of all these different directions and so on. And when I was working on my doctorate, I was also looking at life like it really is, instead of like I'm educated to think. And I kept coming back to our brains don't matter as much as the heart of who we are does. Mm-hmm. Anyway, over the years of working with people and so on, it finally hit me that the heart is a matter that matters more than our thinking. Yeah. And that we continue to put figuring in the place of feeling and discount feeling as some kind of garbage or weakness or neediness that makes us less than or weak or vulnerable, negatively vulnerable. Yeah. So long story short, I ended up writing a book about the feelings. Yeah. The 8 feelings. Yep. That God has given us, literally, I believe with all my heart, that God has given us 8 tools that allow us to live fully in a tragic place.
You know what's interesting about that? We are 2 grown men, former athletes.
Yep. You know that.
Sitting on the couch.
Strong safety.
Yeah. But sitting on the couch, I won't call this a love seat because we're still grown men. But 2 grown men sitting on the couch talking about feelings.
Yes.
Like that's totally former athletes.
Yes.
Talking about feelings. That is so countercultural.
That's against all the rules.
Yeah.
All the rules, all the roles, all the scripts. And yet when people don't tell the truth about what's happening in their hearts, the longest journey a human has run away from is the longest journey we have to return to. It's 18 inches from our heads to our hearts. And if we don't talk about what's happening inside of us, we're alone. Yeah. We're isolated. And, in the scriptures, it's very clear in the book of Peter, it says, "But beware, dear brothers, for the deceiver prowls about like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour." And the thing is, lions hunt for stragglers. And human beings straggle or get left behind or leave themselves behind by being alone within, not being known from the inside out. Yeah. And Dhati, scriptures, the Psalms especially, are full of human being confession and admission of struggle. Yeah. Even the struggle to celebrate. Yep. David was mocked by his wife for celebrating, right? Mm-hmm. So and God has called us to live fully between 1 and 10. The depths of our griefs because we live in a tragic place, and the swelling up of our celebration because we live in a place where victorious, incredible things happen too.
I will never forget this first time that we met. We were, in the room, and you unlocked the voices, of the heart, and you talked about this 8 feelings, and these are tools that God used. And I just remember, it's like, man, like the scales falling down literally from my eyes and just saying, this is what I'm missing.
Yes.
I've been to seminary, I've got master's degrees and all that when talking about theology.
Yes.
But I was just like, this is the anthropology that so many of us need, of just being able to say, this is what it means to be human.
Yeah.
And the more of me that I can have is the more I can actually take to God.
Yes.
Talk to me about that. Talk to me about, like, why is it important for us to learn this and specifically to destigmatize this idea of the emotions, our feelings?
Yeah, it's like you use the word learn, which I agree with, but it's almost like we've got to relearn. We got to go back to how we were created. I've worked with professionals mostly for the past 25 years, pastors, physicians, people in jurisprudence, people in academia, servant leaders. Not the business people as much as the people who want to make a difference in life. And this is the big trap, the big tragedy that I've seen over those years, quarter century and more, is that they started out with this incredible passion of heart. And because they didn't know how to do heart, or didn't know how to admit what was happening inside of them, they weren't using their brains to articulate what was happening inside of them. They were using their brains to figure out how to accomplish. So what happens, so many of these caregivers wind up running out of gas. They run out of emotional capacity, burn out.
Yep.
Because the heart is the wellspring of life. We need to guard it with diligence. And if we don't know where the well is to replenish, then we can't go get the water that we wish to pour out on others. And what's amazing about that is we can't give what we don't have.
Yeah.
And if every human being is not God, and if every human being is like a pitcher, okay, the pitcher is filled. And if you're a servant leader, you pour out what's in that pitcher for the day. And then when you turn it back up, it's empty.
Yeah.
And just how powerful the heart is, more than the brain, brain, heart, is that the even the word encouragement means to have a courage restored, because the courage that you had is now discouraged or low. And isn't it amazing that somebody can speak a word, speak a comment, give you a rub on the head, or say, man, it has to be hard what you're doing, but I'm here for you. And in fact, you said something not too long ago. We were doing a pastor's group, and you made a comment to two of the guys in there, what you'd be willing to do whatever you had to do to make sure they were okay.
Yeah.
And I watched those two men, one, grieve. They felt sadness about all the days that they hungered for that, to finally have those words touch them. And I watched them rise up with a sense of trust and confidence because they had been fed.
Yeah.
And what got fed? What passed between you? No touch, no food, no water, no drink, nothing material. But out of your heart and your mouth went into their hearts, and they rose from the dead, so to speak. And what happens is so often is that so many leaders wind up burning out because they don't have the courage to ask for help. In fact, they even are raised to believe that if they ask for help, they're failing. Yeah. And Jesus said in the book of Matthew 18, 2 and 3, who's the greatest in the kingdom of heaven, the greatest servant? He said he had a child come stand with him, and he said, unless you change and become like one of these, you can't even enter the kingdom. You can't get what this life's about. So anyway, all these professionals I've been working with for years, all these men, these people I've been working with, the missing category is not a lack of wit, not a lack of toughness, not a lack of moral compunction, but a loss of heart.
Yeah.
They lost the language that Jesus said, unless you change and become like one of these. And the expertise of a child is the capacity to feel and say what they're feeling.
So let's talk about that. The idea of guarding the wellspring of our hearts for caregivers who know and who counsel and who spend a lot of their lives, helping people to restore their heart.
Yeah.
Pastors, leaders, counselors, why is it so hard for them to turn around and to do that work for themselves?
Yeah, well, there's kind of like a quick answer and a long answer, but let's just say, to make the long answer short, over the years, these people see the world in pain, and often they were coming from a place of pain, and they really invested their worth in fixing pain, okay? So then they go out into the bigger world to make a difference, But when the difference doesn't come like they thought it would, and it never does fully, even if it's giant crowds, it still doesn't. Like Janis Joplin said, the loneliest place she'd ever been was when she left the crowd and was by herself, off stage. And she found heroin to be her best friend. But so many of these caregivers, they end up like, my worth is in the outcomes instead of my worth is inherent from God. And so when the dreams don't match the results, then they don't know what to do with the loss. And we know that with loss, there's sadness. And Dhati, if we really look at Scripture and Jesus' movements, this man, God himself, full of sadness. How I've longed to gather you under my wings, you children of Israel, but you refused it. Full of loneliness, like I asked you to pray with me, and now I'm suffering here in Gethsemane. Full of fear. I mean, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Full of hurt in terms of y'all betray me. I thought we were together, and I know in my head you won't be, but my heart still is made for relationship with you and others. And he was so caring, compassion, so caring that he was willing to go to any length, any level of pain for his people. And we, and he went away a lot to pray. Spent a lot of time, with God replenishing. So caregiver's expertise, the expertise of a caregiver, if a caregiver wants to really do something great, then know where the well is to replenish your own heart. Know where restoration is for yourself. Because the more you drain yourself, when somebody comes looking for a cup of water, you got nothing in you. You're faking it or making yourself. Then your family suffers, and then you suffer, and then you start asking questions like, what's the point? What's the purpose?
So tell me this. I'm a pastor. I'm a caregiver. I'm a leader. I'm like, man, what you're saying is right on. Like, and I need to be released because I've been holding it in. I'm like the funeral coordinator. I've been the person putting on the wedding. And when everybody else is wilding out, I got to keep my wits about me. But I'm tired. I'm fatigued. I can't do this anymore. I need to guard my own heart. How does being able to communicate the voice of our heart, the feelings that we have, how is that helpful for us?
Jesus himself, when he was done with the day, a lot of times he would go off. Okay, so, Pastor, where does your day end? And when you're done with the day, in spite of the demands, put up the phone and go be with God, go be with your spouse, go be with your children, go be with yourself. And when you're doing that, tell the truth. But how do you tell the truth? Well, here's how to tell the truth. You tell the truth about what's going on inside your chest. And God has given us 8 tools of communication, truth-telling, for our brains to use to articulate the experiences of our heart. And those 8 realities, those 8 tools are universal. Everybody in the world can see a picture of, say, a Korean mother reuniting with this little girl, and her weeping and grabbing the child, and the child is weeping and running to the mother, and then they hug each other. We know by just that we know in this foreign country, let's say where we've never lived, we've never been, right, of another culture, or even another time period, we are touched, if we're alive, by going, that's sadness. There's been a departure, there's been a reconciliation, there's been a comeback. And it's like, and if we're alive, our hearts go up like, I know what that is, if we've experienced it ourselves. And that's where a pastor keeps alive by being alive to remembering being human. Like if he forgets sadness and is always trying to fix it, if he forgets his own loneliness, always trying to stop others, then he's trying to stop the impossible instead of staying relational from his own awareness of his own humanity, and therefore can have compassion towards other humans who are like suffering. So loneliness is understood and known, sadness, hurt, fear, anger.
And you're saying, though, these are the tools. These are the tools that God gives us. And so in the book, you talked about the idea of 8 feelings. These are the feelings. Why not 9? Why not? Why 7? How did you come up with how is it 8?
I know, and that's the great question, because it's like all I can do is say, how come 3 primary colors? Or how come 8 musical notes? How come certain numbers of teeth? I don't know. I mean, but if you can find more, then let's talk. Because I have been looking and open to say, are there more? And it's like, that's them. They don't restrict us, though. They don't put us in a box. Because, those 3 primary colors, out of those colors come thousands of tones and hundreds. And out of those musical notes, we haven't finished the symphonies. But if we can't speak the truth of how God made us, then how do we get the needs met that we're made to get met, Tragically, though, we live in a world where feelings are associated, like you brought up, the athletes.
Yep.
It's like we start breaking rules by saying, man, I'm hurting.
Yeah.
But you think about real warrioresses. I mean, warriors get wounded, and that means they get hurt. Yeah. It means they go to battle and they experience loss. Warriors also have times when they want to go home so badly that it's like they get sick. Yeah. It's called homesick. Yeah. And so warriors need warriors. Like when that warrior's wounded, they need a circle of warriors around them. Say, we're watching out after you while you heal. And we're going to watch out for you to make sure nothing happens to you. And they know to do that because they know what it's like. Because they can look in the middle of that circle and say, someday I'll be in that circle. Yeah. And so I will give to you what I will need myself, and I will need myself what I'm giving to you. Yeah. Isn't it something that the golden rule?
Yes.
Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. And if we don't know the person on the street, the person we're attempting to serve, if we can't remember and we lose touch with what it's like to be human, then we're not giving them what they really need, which is the relational touch that brings them back to a relational God. Yeah.
I'm just imagining, like you talk about the stuff we're talking about is about being present, going to a boss, hey, you make me sad. Yeah. You hurt me.
This is a great question.
So it's just kind of like, I mean,
wrong person.
Like how do you really express this out like in real life? Yeah. Like not in your fantasy world.
Yes.
Like,
it's kind of like, it feels like you control the world. But you tell somebody you have fears, they go, oh, well, let's change the world.
Yeah.
This isn't for babies.
Yeah.
This is about replenishment, restoration. This is about redemption, recreation, so that we can go out and wage war, not like the world wages war, but wage war with love. Like there are people you don't tell this to. You are known to people who you want to know you, and you're known to people who know themselves. It's a circle of replenishment. The disciples got together and shared everything with each other. But when they went out into the world, they were as cunning as serpents and as innocent as doves. I mean, they, as Paul said, I'll be all things to all people. But when he sat down with his brothers, I'm pretty sure he said some things he didn't necessarily say in public. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
he shared his heart.
Right.
Like he and Barnabas got into it. And was it John Mark?
Yep.
It's like, can y'all not get this together? They were struggling around issues of the heart. So.
That's good.
Yeah.
Man, there's so much more that we can just talk about. I mean, I would love to talk about it some more because as we even talk about this, the idea of trauma, let's take another time to talk about just the issues of trauma and how emotions and feelings connect, to us as we're dealing with trauma and traumatic times. Definitely. So appreciate you.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Dhati. Good to see you.
Good seeing you.